Our garden was dry, lifeless, like dust on toast. Nothing grew, no worms, no hope. Then, we poured in one simple thing. From our kitchen trash. No store-bought compost. No chemicals. Just something most people throw away. And in just 3 days, the soil came alive. Thousands of earthworms showed up like a miracle, working the ground, turning death into life. What did we use? Stick around, because if your garden feels hopeless, this one change could bring it back to life. This all started with my neighbor, Miss Eleanor. She's 74, widowed, and has the kind of garden that looks like a magazine cover in spring. Her tomatoes blush deeper than most people's first crush. But the funny part? She calls her compost bin Alfred and talks to it like an old friend. One afternoon, I was out front poking at my dry, cracked garden bed, wondering if I should just cover it with gravel and call it quits. Miss Eleanor saw me and waddled over with her sun hat and sandals. She looked at my soil, shook her head, and said, "If your soil's dead, it's not sick, it's hungry." She told me how soil isn't just dirt, it's a living thing. And just like people, it needs to eat. Not store-bought food, but real, organic scraps. Stuff most of us toss out without a second thought. She swore that if I fed it right, it would come back to life. I didn't believe her at first, but when she handed me a small bucket of something from Alfred, I decided to try it. I had nothing to lose. What happened next changed everything. Miss Eleanor handed me a glass jar filled with something that looked questionable, brown, murky, like someone poured old coffee over a pile of leaves. It smelled earthy, like rain, mixed with tea and a hint of compost. She smiled and said, "It's worm tea. Don't drink it. It's not for you. It's for your soil." I stared at the jar, unsure whether I should bury it or bless it. But Eleanor swore by it. "This stuff wakes the soil up," she said. "It doesn't just feed the plants, it feeds the life beneath them." At first, I thought worm tea meant it had actual worms in it. Turns out, it's not made from worms, it's made for them. And they love it like bees love flowers. Worm tea is created by soaking organic compost, especially rich kitchen, scraps like veggie peels, coffee grounds, and crushed eggshells, in water for about 24 to 48 hours. Some people aerate it by stirring or using a bubbler, but even a simple soak works wonders. This soaking process draws out all the beneficial microbes, nutrients, and moisture from the compost and infuses the water with life. That water becomes a powerful liquid fertilizer, but not the kind that burns your plants. It's gentle, balanced, and packed with natural goodness. It's like a smoothie for your soil. What makes worm tea special isn't just the nutrients. It's the living microbes inside. These tiny organisms wake up the soil's biology, making it a rich buffet for earthworms. When you pour it into your garden, you're not just watering, you're sending out an invitation. And that's exactly what happened. I poured that jar of worm tea over the deadest part of my garden, a patch I had given up on. The soil sucked it in like it had been waiting for something real. 2 days passed, then 3, and on the 3rd morning, I saw them. Dozens, then hundreds, of worms were wriggling through the surface, like they were late for a party. Some thick, some thin, red wigglers, night crawlers, all there, turning the soil, aerating it, feeding the roots I thought were long gone. It was like my garden exhaled. So what looked like a suspicious brown brew turned out to be a resurrection tool. No chemicals, no big expense, just a simple mix of compost and water and a little patience. Miss Eleanor was right. The soil wasn't sick. It was just hungry. And worm tea? That was its feast. Day 1, nothing. I poured the worm tea over the lifeless soil like Miss Eleanor said. I gave it a good soaking, especially in the driest patches where even weeds had stopped trying. Then I waited. Checked again that evening. Still dry. Still quiet. Just dirt. Day 2, a change. The soil looked darker, damp, like it had taken a long drink. There was a softness to it I hadn't seen in weeks, maybe months. I pressed my hand into the bed, and instead of crumbling apart, the soil held its shape. No movement yet, but something felt different. I remember thinking, maybe this tea thing is just a slow process. Still, I didn't expect much. But day 3, that's when it happened. I walked out early that morning with my coffee, still half asleep, and glanced at the garden. For a second, I thought the soil was bubbling. I stepped closer, squinted, and realized it wasn't bubbling at all. It was moving. Worms. Hundreds of them. Wriggling up from beneath. twisting and weaving across the soil surface like a living web. Big, healthy nightcrawlers. Tiny red wigglers. I counted more than I'd ever seen, not just in my garden, but in my life. They were everywhere, and not in a gross, invasive way, but in a beautiful, almost sacred way. The soil had come alive. The once dry dirt now looked rich and crumbly. The earth had that deep, chocolatey texture that you only see in those fancy garden magazines. I gently dug a few inches down, and to my amazement, it was full of tunnels, castings, and, of course, more worms. They were already at work, breaking down organic matter, aerating the soil, and feeding the roots of plants I hadn't even planted yet. And here's the beautiful part. This all happened without spending a dime. No fertilizer bags, no chemical sprays, no backbreaking digging. Just a jar of worm tea, made from kitchen scraps, poured into the soil with a little faith, and given 3 quiet days. That's it. It reminded me that nature doesn't need fixing, just a little help. Sometimes, the simplest solutions make the biggest difference. All it took was trusting the process, and giving the soil what it was starving for. And the reward? A garden full of life, starting with the smallest creatures that matter most. After seeing what worm tea did for my garden, I knew I had to learn how to make it myself and share it with others. The best part? It's so simple, anyone can do it. You don't need a fancy compost system, expensive tools, or even a garden shed. If you have a bucket and a few kitchen scraps, you're already halfway there. Here's how you can make your own batch of garden-saving worm tea, just like Miss Eleanor's. Step-by-step guide to making worm tea. 1. Take a bucket or large jar. Any clean container will do. A 1-gallon plastic bucket, an old food container, or even a large mason jar works great. Just make sure it hasn't been used for chemicals. This is going into your soil. After all. 2. Add a handful of compost or kitchen scraps. This is the magic ingredient. Use rich, finished compost if you have it. If not, toss in some kitchen scraps like banana peels, vegetable trimmings, used coffee grounds, tea bags, or crushed eggshells. Stay away from meat, dairy, or anything oily. Worms don't love those. 3. Add water, non-chlorinated if possible. Fill the bucket with water. If you're using tap water, let it sit uncovered for 12 to 24 hours to let the chlorine evaporate. Chlorine can kill the beneficial microbes you want. Rainwater or filtered water is even better if you have access to it. 4. Let it sit for 24 to 48 hours. Let the mix steep like a giant cup of tea. Stir it occasionally to help oxygen flow through. This soaking time allows all the good stuff, microbes, nutrients, and organic compounds, to seep into the water. Optional, if you want to supercharge it. You can use an aquarium pump to bubble air through the tea while it brews. This creates an aerated compost tea with even more microbial activity. But don't worry, even a basic soak works wonders. 5. Stir and pour around the base of plants. After 24 to 48 hours, give it a good stir and pour the liquid directly onto the soil around the base of your plants. Avoid getting it on the leaves. This isn't a foliar spray. Worm tea works best when it's absorbed into the roots and surrounding soil. You can strain the tea if you want to remove solid bits, especially if you're using a watering can or pump sprayer. But if you're pouring it by hand, a few scraps won't hurt. How often should you use worm tea? Once a week during the growing season is plenty. It gives your soil a gentle, ongoing boost of nutrients and beneficial microbes, and it keeps worms coming back for more. Worm tea isn't just a garden hack. It's a reminder of how powerful nature can be when we work with it. It turns waste into life, trash into treasure, a few peels and grounds into a thriving ecosystem. If your soil feels tired, try feeding it something real. You might be surprised who shows up for dinner. Gardening should be joyful, not painful. And while worm tea is simple to make and use, a few small adjustments can make the whole process easier, safer, and more enjoyable, especially if you're over 60 and want to avoid unnecessary strain or mess. Here are some senior-friendly tips and gentle warnings to help. You garden smart, not hard. 1. If bending over is tough, use a long spout watering can or a repurposed milk jug with a small hole poked in the lid. This lets you pour your worm tea directly at the base of your plants without having to crouch or kneel. Raised garden beds or container gardens also help reduce the need to bend. Bonus tip: if you have a rolling stool or garden seat, Keep it nearby when applying your worm tea. Your knees will thank you. 2. If compost smells too strong. A strong, sour, or rotten smell usually means the balance is off. Try adding more greens, vegetable peels, coffee grounds, tea leaves, and fewer acidic items like citrus peels or onion skins. Avoid adding meat, dairy, or oily foods altogether. They attract pests and smell bad fast. A well-balanced compost or worm tea should smell earthy, like fresh rain or a forest floor, never rotten. 3. If you have sensitive skin, always wear gardening gloves when handling compost, worm tea, or kitchen scraps. Even natural ingredients can irritate the skin, especially if you have allergies or eczema. Gloves also protect you from bacteria, dirt under the nails, or hidden sharp bits like eggshell edges. Pro tip: keep a gentle hand soap and towel near your garden area, so you can wash up right after working. Your skin, and anyone you hug afterward, will appreciate it. 4. If lifting buckets is a challenge. Don't strain your back trying to carry heavy water or compost. Make smaller batches of worm tea in half-gallon jugs or store them on a sturdy rolling cart. Even better, ask a grandchild or neighbor to help stir or carry it. Gardening can be a beautiful way to connect across generations. 5. Keep it safe and simple. Don't store worm tea for more than 2 days. It's meant to be fresh and alive with microbes, just like yogurt or bread dough. After 48 hours, it starts to lose potency. Label your worm tea jar clearly so no one mistakes it for something drinkable. Always rinse your watering can or bucket after use to prevent odors or buildup. You don't need to move like you're 20 to grow something beautiful. You just need the right tools, smart habits, and a little grace for your body. Worm tea is gentle, natural, and forgiving, and your gardening approach should be too. Your garden isn't just a place to grow food, it's a place to feel alive. So keep it simple, stay safe, and let the worms do the heavy lifting. Now it's your turn. Have you ever tried a wild gardening trick like this? Maybe you poured something strange on your plants and saw magic happen? Or maybe you brought dead soil back to life with a weird, wonderful idea? Tell us in the comments. The Evergreen Seniors. Family isn't just about tips. It's about sharing stories, wisdom, and the little things that worked when nothing else did. You never know. Your advice might just be what saves someone else's garden. Our garden came back to life. Not with expensive fertilizers, not with machines or endless digging, but with one jar of worm tea, a neighbor's wisdom, and a little faith in nature. It didn't happen instantly, but in just 3 days, life returned, in the form of thousands of tiny, wriggling miracles. And the best part? We didn't have to buy a thing. We just used what most people throw away: kitchen scraps, water, and patience. So if there's a dry, forgotten corner of your yard, if a patch of soil looks too far gone, don't give up just yet. Maybe it isn't dead. Maybe it's just hungry. And maybe, just maybe, all it's waiting for is your first batch of worm tea. Comment your weirdest garden fix. Like if this gave you hope for your soil. Subscribe for more forgotten garden wisdom every week. Let's bring our gardens and each other back to life.